Welcome, Wim. Thanks for being with me today. And let's talk about Nokia's AI 4 networking vision here. Let's start with Nokia's level 4 autonomy vision. I know that the Nokia leadership has communicated goals to achieve level 4 readiness according to the TM Forum framework in the near future. Can you walk us through what this means practically for network operators? And what's your divide and conquer philosophy that I've heard you talk about in the past?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, so first of all, I think what it means from an operator perspective is that first of all, what we are doing internally is we are assessing the product portfolio across the board with respect to the ops flows that are defined by TM Forum, right? So there is various ops flows defined, and we are assessing, first of all, internally where we are with respect to those, looking at the various levels that are defined by TM Forum. And so what you see right now is that we have some of the capabilities already at level 4 and some are not, right? So that means that over time from operators, they will get more and more capabilities that assist and helps them to get their networks to be operated from a level 4 perspective, right? So what you see is that over time, you'll see more and more capabilities coming into the product to get our various operation flows to support more and more autonomy and more and more capabilities that help them to get towards that autonomy. Now, if you look to that whole domain, and if we zoom in into the divide and conquer, that I think is very important, right? The problem space is huge, right? And typically, when we look at from a human perspective to a big problem, what you typically do is you divide them into smaller pieces and you try to focus on that specific aspect, right? It's the same when you have a problem in the network. You first look at the symptoms, and from the symptoms, you zoom in into the specifics, and at some point, you find the root cause. And the same thing goes in from our perspective in this environment is where we basically look at these upflows, and if you look to the various domains that we have in communications, right? We have mobile, we have fixed, we have optics, we have IP, and so on and so forth. What you see is that actually, even within those domains, you can actually look at various aspects and build expert systems around that. To give you an example, transmission and getting to figure out when an optics is going to fail is a certain expertise by which you can specialize. The same is true for routing capabilities. The same is true for control plane issues and stuff like that. And so what we actually are doing is that we are dividing the various domains into smaller pieces by which we can build then expertise and expert systems that helps us with those level 4 capabilities that are being defined in TM Forum. And as such, we built a system that then with those various experts environments can collaborate together to then achieve the higher goal and get us towards what we call that autonomous operations.
Thank you. So in terms of this divide and conquer approach, and in terms of these multiple domains and the fact that you are doing it in different places, I think the reality that we know in many networks, whether it's telco networks or enterprise networks, there's multiple vendors. That's just the reality. And each of those vendors, aside from Nokia, will have their own AI approach. So how does Nokia address this fragmentation? And what's your vision for industry standardization for AI-driven network operation?
Yeah, so I think that's a big challenge, right? Because typically what you see is that Nokia will look at it from their perspective, other vendors are looking at it from their perspective, and we all believe that we can build the best solution for our customers. I think the reality is that our customers typically have multiple vendors, and somehow we have to find ways on how which our customers, our operators, can actually consume those systems in a way that they don't have to build very big isolated building blocks for each of these vendors. So what we are doing, going back to what we discussed before, is like in the divide and conquer approach, you actually see that if you divide the domain into specific domains or specific expertise, the idea is also that we give them well-defined interfaces towards that expert system. And that is actually the first unit that we need to agree upon within the industry. And there is various attempts already today, like MCP is a good example of that, right? And so we need to look to see, okay, which protocols, which capabilities do we need to have to actually talk to a certain expert system of a particular vendor, right? Once we have that, and I think we are making good progress in that area, we can then build systems that communicate together by which we can have various of these expert elements communicate with each other to achieve a bigger goal, right? And so we are building systems like that when we talk about level 4 autonomous operation that actually are built like that, because even within Nokia, we have various groups, various people that all have different elements or aspects that they are trying to address. And as such, that's how we can build a big collaborative system by which we can easily integrate and easily plug systems together.
Excellent. Thanks. Now, I know that in some of our past conversations, you've hinted that the solution to modern network operation is not AI only. Now, we just talked about AI, but it's a combination of multiple approaches, including agents, obviously, because that's the hot keyword. But humans don't go away. Human oversight is still needed. So can you maybe give us a concrete example of this hybrid approach works in practice?
Yeah, so I think even today, what you see is that today we typically, the way we address automation is through programs, right? So we have humans and we have programs that sit together. Right now, what we have is we have another set of system, which is the AI system that actually is a third element on how we can address some of these problems. Now, what is interesting is that if you look to the assessment that we are doing, for example, with the op flows, you actually see that some problems are better solved using a programmatic approach versus an agentic approach. And I think it's a combination of these things. So to give you an example, we built a very advanced PCE controller, right? And it's very much hardened, works very well with our customers and stuff like that, works at scale. There is no benefit of moving that towards an AI type of approach, right? Because it actually works, it scales, it is actually hardened, and it's proven to accomplish the job. Now, when you look at other tasks, right, they are typically better performed, or where you basically use AI mechanisms to help and assist you in trying to troubleshoot the problem. But also there, for example, if you look to an MCP approach, what you have is you have an LLM type of model that are assisted with tools. The tools are programs, typically. And as such, you see that a combination of multiple elements to actually address that problem is going to be important. If you take a step back, when you look at the divide and conquer, when we do the assessment on getting us towards a level 4, you typically see that the answer is a combination of AI technologies and even ML technologies together with programs, right? And even assisted with humans. So you actually see that it's a combination of various of these components that together collaborate in order to accomplish a particular goal or a particular operational task that is defined in the ops flows.
Excellent. Got it. And for sure, we know that in terms of these kinds of hybrid approach, one of the key elements are the new agentic and these AI systems that will work autonomously or somewhat autonomously. So one of the key issues with these kinds of implementation grapple with trust in the system. So how do you build that trust across the journey from some of the early interfaces like natural language interfaces to assisted operations and eventually what we're hoping for, which is autonomous systems? How do you get a trust in the system?
Yeah, so first of all, so in some cases, we even ask the question to multiple of these systems and try to see whether the answers are correct, right? But so there is techniques that you actually qualify the answers. But as such, we also build into our systems like what we call the digital twins or the validation logic to actually validate what was actually suggested or proposed as a change, right? Also important is that there is two approaches in this AI or autonomous operation. One of the approach is you actually have this middle layer, what we call domain controllers. And so we are of the big believer that in the first step, a domain controller is going to play an important role with respect to validation through, for example, digital twins, but also through other validation logic that you actually build in, where you actually curate the answer and try to figure out whether what is the confidence score by which that answer has been given. Sometimes validating through programs, but also validating sometimes by using multiple of these AI approaches together and then validating and curating the answers to actually see whether we are going into the right direction or not.
Excellent. Now, I'm going to sort of wrap this up with something that we're all seeing. We're seeing, I don't know, I don't have the numbers, but we're seeing fewer network engineers entering the field and existing talent aging out, right? Not calling ourselves old, but certainly we're getting up there. How does Nokia's AI strategy address this skills shortage while still maintaining the specialized knowledge needed for complex network operations. How do you balance automation with preserving critical human expertise?
Yeah, there is actually three aspects to that. First of all, we are making our products and our documentation and how you access our information more easily consumable, that you don't have to be an expert to actually figure that out. So natural language and documentation enhancements and stuff like that play a critical role into that. The second aspect that we have is learning and consultative skills, right? To actually assist people on-prem that are building those networks, building a design. We are using our expertise that we have built in-house, and we actually help and assist our customers that leverage that such that we do knowledge transfer. Thirdly, what we are also doing, or we started to do, is actually we are building what we call SaaS based offers, right? Where customers who are typically rather small, right? And they want to actually consume our technology, but they don't have the skill to maintain and operate and look at all the details. So we are also building in capability that we can offer our products as a service towards our customers. And as such, we are playing, let's say, a cooperation in the operation element of our customers. So, for example, upgrading our products, right? So there is new patches, there is new capabilities available. We are using that. But we are even going a step further where we are actually using some of the techniques that I was discussing before, like we are using traditional approaches with a knowledge base, as well as with AI and LLMs, where we can actually help root cause the problem. And we are going, so our strategy is to even go to a mode where we can actually figure out issues ahead of the customer, right? And can help troubleshoot and can help identify that. So basically three approaches. And I think it's a combination of all of these three that actually will help us move forward in this direction.